Hello and welcome back to Democracy, everybody. Welcome back to Helldivers, where today we're going to be going over all the orbital strikes, and we're going to be ranking them versus the three factions, the bugs, the bots, and the squids. So let's just go over orbitals in general. As soon as you throw out an orbital, it immediately goes on cooldown for anybody that's new to this, and then once that cooldown is lifted, then you can use it again. Each individual orbital has its own separate cooldown, so they're not tied to one another whatsoever, and the orbitals tend to be pretty good in most situations. Not all of them in every situation, but there's quite a few that are really good. So let's start with the very first one, which is the Orbital Precision Strike. And this one is actually completely free. You start out with this. This one has a 90-second cooldown as well, so it is very short. You can actually call this one in quite often. And this one is straightforward. You throw it down, and it just fires one big round where you threw it, and it does a ton of damage. Now, this one against the bugs, I would say is maybe the weakest, but I would still say this one's probably like an A tier. I find this one really difficult to actually hit like Titans and Chargers with because they move around quite a bit. On the bot and on the squid front, though, I would say this one's an S tier. This one is really easy to stick to things like hulks or tanks, or throw it at striders, or throw it at buildings with the bots, and it's also really easy to throw at an illuminate ship directly. It's a little bit more difficult if you're trying to hit like a harvester with it, but most of the time if you're just going for like knocking out structures, this one is fantastic. And since it has such a low cooldown, it doesn't really matter if you miss with this one. You'll get it back up in a couple of seconds and you can throw it right back down at something, because the 90-second timer is at its max. This can be reduced with certain ship upgrades. Up next, we have the Gas Strike, which is available at level 1. This is a 4-button input, has a 75-second cooldown on it. This one drops a strike directly down that also has impact damage. This can knock out structures and stuff, so that's kind of nice. And then it sprays out poison gas. This gas lingers in that area and deals damage to everything that stays in it. This one is fantastic. This one I would say is an S tier across the board. Against bugs, bots, and squids, the Gas Strike is amazing. It's probably one of the best stratagems in the game, definitely one of the best orbitals in the game. It comes up super fast. At maximum cooldown, it's like less than 60 seconds that you get these things in, so you can toss them out whenever you would like. They're really good for throwing on objectives. They're fairly hard to actually kill teammates with as well, since unless you get knocked down in the gas, you're probably not going to really die from it. You usually have enough time to heal yourself and run outside of the gas before it could actually kill you. It's mostly made for crowd control, but even against the bots that may not have the biggest crowds, you can still use this to throw it directly at a tank or something and just knock it out. Or you can use it to choke off in areas for the small and medium bots to run through, and they'll still be taking damage. Also, when things are affected by the gas, they will start trying to fight one another too, so that's also even better against the melee units like the bugs and the squids. Next orbital is the Orbital EMS Strike. This one is a non-lethal strike. This one is unlocked at level 5, has a 75-second cooldown, so it's the same cooldown as the Gas Strike, and it's also a 4-button input. This one is substantially worse than the Gas Strike, though. This one basically just slows everything in the area. This includes friendlies, and yourself included too, so if you get hit by it, it's kind of annoying. And it doesn't really do any damage there. It kind of just locks enemies in place. This one I find to be way more difficult to use than the mortar that has the same rounds in it. The mortar that has the same rounds in it tends to be a lot more effective, mostly because it can shoot out multiple of these in quick succession, and it has auto-aim on it. So that's a big bonus. For the EMS Strike, I would say this one's a D tier for both the squids and for the bugs, but I would say it's like maybe a C tier against the bots. I think it has the best use case scenario there, but even then it's still just sort of awkward. It's not really the greatest. And speaking of potentially slightly better stratagems, we have the Orbital Smoke Strike up next. So the Orbital Smoke Strike is also a non-lethal strike. This one's unlocked at level 8. This one's also a 4-button input. This one does have a 100-second cooldown on it though, so the longest cooldown so far. This one drops smoke directly on the location that you throw it on. For the bugs and for the squids, this doesn't generally do that much to them. It can obscure them, and it's mostly better against range enemies, and it can be useful if you throw this directly down onto an objective that you're trying to complete. This can be useful if you like playing in that playstyle, but even then, sometimes that's not even necessary. The smoke may not actually really be helping you. It's mostly to obscure like ranged attacks, and it's good against the bots for that. So I would say this one's like a B tier for the bots, where it's a D tier for the bugs and squids. I don't find it being all that useful against them, but on certain bot missions, this one can be kind of nice, especially if you're trying to like get resupplies for teammates and you're trying to kind of like reset the match. Like, the Smoke Strike can be really useful, or again, if you're trying to push certain objectives, then the Smoke Strike can also be okay. Our next barrage is the Gatling barrage. This one is also available at level 1, which is really good. This one also has a 70-second cooldown, so it comes up very quickly. It's really nice. This is a 5-button input, and this one you throw down, and then it just starts shooting machine gun fire directly down on that area. This lingers for quite a while, and this machine gun fire has up to heavy armor pen on it. The damage is a little bit randomized with the Gatling barrage in particular, but this can potentially hurt any anything that it hits, similar to like the Eagle strafing run. And this one is really solid, especially against the bugs. If you throw this one down directly on where like a bug tunnel breach happens, the Gatling barrage can potentially just wipe out everything before the bugs really even get a spawn there. Some of them might get out alive, but most of them won't, so it's really useful for that. This one I would say is an S tier against the bugs. Against the bots and the squids, I would say this one's a little bit weaker, and I'd say it's like an A tier. It's still very solid because it comes up so often, and if you want to choke off an area, it's really good for that. This can be particularly useful against the squids, especially all the melee units. Like, they can't really deal with the Gatling barrage too much, but some of the ranged enemies might just not go to it, or might just rush right through it. Then we have the Orbital airburst. This one you unlock at level 5. This one's a 3-button input, and this one has a 100-second cooldown on it. This one is interesting. This one can be a friendly fire machine, because this one you fire down, and then it has the air bursting rounds, so they will drop so far, and then explode, and then hit everything on the ground. This doesn't have the penetration like the Gatling barrage does, and it can potentially have a little bit bigger AoE than the Gatling barrage. At least it kind of feels that way. This one goes off multiple times in an area, and it's mostly there to break up crowds. For that, it can actually be pretty useful, but I don't really use this one too much. That being said, against the bugs and the squids, I'd probably say this one's a B tier. For the bots, I would say this one's like a C tier. Against the bots, this just doesn't do a whole lot. It can kill like the small ones, but sometimes even the medium ones can shrug this off and just run right through it, and it won't really do anything for the big ones. The bugs and the squids, generally the medium and the smaller enemies, will have a real struggle going through the air burst, and once again, if you throw this on like a bug breach, it can clear them up pretty well. So this one is still fairly useful. I just like the Gatling barrage a little bit more than this one. I think that one's a little bit better for basically the same job. And then we have our big HE barrages. So first up, we have the 120 barrage. And the 120 barrage, I would just say, is a straight S tier across the board. The 120 barrage is unlocked at level 5, and this one has a 180-second cooldown. So a longer cooldown than the others. However, this doesn't have that long a cooldown compared to some of the barrages, which is a good thing because the barrages cover a huge area. This is multiple explosive rounds that can drop down, and this can knock out basically everything. It can kill big enemies, it can kill small enemies, medium enemies, and it can knock out structures really well. That's like the main thing that you kind of want with the barrages. If you want to run towards an objective, kind of just toss this in there, wander off, go to another objective. Hopefully the barrage knocks out everything there, or it breaks up everything so well that you can just come back. And the 120 barrage has the lowest cooldown of these ones, so you can throw it the most often. Even though this one doesn't have the biggest explosion radius, nor does it do the most damage per hit, it doesn't really need that, especially with the cooldown. You can usually call these in on whatever structure you would like. So this can be really useful for knocking out bug tunnels. It's really good at knocking out bot factories, and it can be really good for knocking out Illuminate ships too. Like the 120 barrage is very solid. Up next, we have the 380 barrage. So if you wanted a barrage that hit even harder, this one's unlocked at level 8. This one will cost you 7,500, and this one is a 7-button input to throw out. So it does take a little bit longer to get this one ready. This one has an even bigger explosion radius. This one covers even more area, and this one hits even harder than the 120 barrage. And in certain aspects, that can be better. Not in every aspect, though. I would say for bugs and for squids, this one's probably like an A tier. Most of the time, it gets the same job done that the 120 would do, but sometimes it's a little bit more useful. Sometimes it does knock out a Titan. Sometimes it does knock out a Harvester or something like that. Sometimes it knocks out like a Leviathan, which is pretty good. But if you're using this against structures, most of the time it does about the same job. Against bots, I would say this one's S tier though. I think this one is better against bots, simply because, again, they have a lot more big, wide targets, so it's easier for this barrage to hit them directly. It's a lot easier for this to hit, like, the Factory Strider. It's a lot easier for this to hit tanks. The Hulks and other smaller... Hulks aren't really small, but they're smaller than some of those other vehicles. This one does about the same job as like the 120 barrage, and it can be kind of nicer for knocking out like the bot fortress in particular, because those guns on there are very scary, and this one tends to kill them pretty well. So 380 barrage is very fun too. Generally, I like taking both the 120 and the 380 barrage and just throwing one into one area of a base, walking to the other side and throwing the other one there, and that usually covers the whole base and will knock out just about everything. If it doesn't, there's going to be a lot of stuff closed and a lot of stuff dead, so it's going to be fairly easy to walk back in there a little bit later to actually clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up. Up next, we have the Orbital Walking Barrage. This one is unlocked at level 10. This one will also cost you 7,500, and this one also has a 240-second cooldown. This one is a 6-button input, but it's the same 2 buttons over and over again, so you can actually throw it out pretty fast, which is kind of nice. And the Orbital Walking Barrage will shoot out the same 380 rounds from the 380 barrage, but it won't be in a big AoE circle. This will just directly creep towards the enemy. And for that, it has the longest range out of I think, any stratagem in the game pretty much. You can hit structures from a ways away, and you can even potentially knock out structures like the jammer towers from quite a ways away just with this, if you get decent RNG, because this will just keep firing one round left and then right of it, walking towards there. It's really good for knocking out structures, and it can be really good for knocking out big things. That being said, it's probably the best on the bot missions, and it's a little bit awkward on like the bug missions. So for bugs, I would say this one's like a C tier. It can still be useful, it can still knock out structures, it can still knock out big things like titans and chargers, but I find it to be a little bit more difficult to knock out multiple bug tunnels with this. Most of the time you can knock out like 2, maybe 3 in a particular area, but most of the time the bug tunnels are sort of in like a circle, and just going straight along the line makes it a little bit less consistent there. It's still good though, I still like it. For bots, though, I'd say this one's S tier. This one's really good, especially on like those jammer tower missions, because you can throw this out of range of the jammer tower, and it can actually walk towards them and knock them out, so you don't even have to go over there. That's really cool. And then against squids, I would say this one's probably like A tier. It's very easy to line this up across multiple Illuminate ships and just knock them out, as well as just make a pretty straight line that's pretty safe to run through afterwards, so you can knock out anything else that's on the side of those. Then we have the Orbital Laser Strike, which this one is really cool too. This one's unlocked at level 15, will cost you 10,000 requisition slips, and has a 300-second cooldown. This is also one of the very few stratagems that has limited use as well. You can only use this one 3 times per mission. You can't use it anytime after that. So once you've expended all 3 lasers, that's it, you're done. You don't get a laser anymore for the match. This one's a 5-button input, and this one is really cool. This one will fire down a laser, and then it will seek out whatever enemies are nearby. It tries to go after the bigger enemies first, and this will prioritize Illuminate ships, and it will also prioritize bot factories. It won't prioritize bug tunnels, though, but if it does happen to go across bug tunnels, it can still close them up. And for that, the orbital laser is really strong. It also leaves fire behind it, too, so anything walking across it can take damage from that. The laser, I'd probably say, is A tier versus the bugs and versus the squids, but against bots, I would maybe bump it up to S tier. It's kind of hard to say, because there are missions where once you run out of 3 of these, and sometimes you use them immediately as they come up, there still might be a decent amount of the mission left, and then you're basically left with one less stratagem. That can also be kind of the problem with like the bugs and the squids. Squid missions usually you get through pretty fast. I think the squids are the easiest faction to fight. Bots are somewhere in the middle, and I think bugs currently are like the toughest, as well as this one can't really focus down the bug tunnels. This one can focus down titans and chargers though, which is really good. It's really nice for just clearing up crowds, and with the lingering fire that it leaves, it's also pretty good for knocking out any of the small bugs too. Next up, we have the Orbital Napalm Barrage. This one is similar to like the 120 and the 380 Barrage, but it has fire on it. This one's mostly meant for crowd control, but it does leave a lot of fire on the ground, and it's very difficult for enemies to walk across that. It can also be very difficult for you to walk across it if you don't have fireproof armor too. This one's unlocked at level 18, has a 240-second cooldown, and this one is a 6-button input as well. For bugs, I would say this one's probably S tier. It's really good for just closing off one area to the bugs. If you see a bunch of holes spawning somewhere over there, you throw it over there, and they're probably all dead. The fire can kill just about everything really quickly. The only thing it won't kill super fast would be like the titans. Pretty much everything else is probably going to linger in the fire for a bit and die. So it's really good on the bug missions. On the squid and bot missions, I would say this one's closer to like a B tier. It can still be decent for the crowd control, but generally you don't really need it that much against the squids, and I'd rather have something like the 120 barrage or even the 380 barrage for knocking out structures in that regard. And then for the bots, once again, this can be okay for the crowd control, and if things sit in the fire long enough, they will die too, so you can even kill like the bigger bots with this. But usually you don't really need that. It's kind of more useful to knock out the big things immediately rather than wait for them to burn out over time, because sometimes the big things can just one-shot you even when you have like the strongest armors on. And then our very last barrage is the Orbital Railcannon. And this one is pretty much the same as the Precision Strike that we started out with, where you throw this one down and then it just snipes something. This has, I think, the same damage as the Precision Strike, but it does have a longer cooldown on it, and this one has auto-aim, so it will just flick to whatever's nearby. This one can also focus down structures like the Illuminate ships and the bot factories. It won't focus on bug tunnels, however, if you throw it directly on a bug tunnel and there's nothing else for it to focus on, it should shoot that one too. Unless you get like really bad luck that it came in from the wrong angle, which can happen, but usually it'll still close the tunnel. This one's unlocked to level 20. This one will also cost you 10,000 requisition slips. This one has a 5-button input, and this one has a 120-second cooldown. So about 3 times the amount of cooldown that like the precision strike has, which makes it a little bit awkward because if you're really good with the precision strike, you don't really need this. You could take both and then just keep throwing out whenever you need to knock out things. That actually works pretty well too. Against the bugs and the squids, I would say this one's close to like a B tier. It can be okay for knocking out titans, it can be okay for knocking out chargers, and it can be alright for knocking out certain illuminate enemies like the harvest. This one I would say is better against the bots, but I'd probably just raise it up to an A tier. It's better against the bigger bots than it is against anything else, and most of the time there's a lot of big bots, at least on the higher difficulty. So this can knock out Hulks, this can knock out Striders. It's not going to knock out a Factory Strider, but at least it will hurt it, so that's good. And that does it for all the Orbital Strikes in Helldivers 2. Which ones are your favorite? Which ones do you enjoy using the most? And thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.